I know that was a divided report, but I don't somewhere along the line, I missed that totally as being on our agenda, so. Do you remember what the actual vote was?
If anything, it was probably 8-5.
Yeah. Thank you. Representative Brennan, in terms of this afternoon, I had on my list 1318, 1451, 961, 474, and then 552.
Yeah, I had 474 second, but I got an old draft of the schedule. So.
And excuse me, 552 was not tabled. We have already voted on that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's why the motion will be to reconsider
Got it. Sorry.
our previous action.
I can't find my notes on that.
So Senator, you want to do 1318, 1451, 961, 474, and 552?
And unless there was a request to change the order, I thought that's how we had them, but
No,
I'll go with anything. I know 1318 was one that we
First.
wanted to move first.
First.
Well, people.
And 552 is last.
So
So
I know that there's people with 1318 that have other things as well. So they requested that. I remember going back and forth here. So numbers wise, 1, 2. I'm only seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 live. So Representative Brennan,
Yes.
do you have a preference? Would you like to maintain the gavel or rotate? What would you like?
it's totally up to you. Let me see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5. Probably the ones that might take the most time are 1450 or 474 and 552. But if you, what works for you will be okay for me.
Again, I don't have a preference, so we can.
Well, why don't I take 1318 and it'd probably be good if I did 474, just because we worked it last year or 2 years ago as well.
Okay. If
I tell you what, Senator, why don't you just take the first 3 and I'll take the last 2,
okay,
and that'll be 474 and 552.
okay, that's great. Thank you. We do look, peers. People have come and gone. We have a quorum. 1, 2.
We do.
We do. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'll get it over to you.
I know we already are live. So
Representative Sampson, you have, oh, there you go. They just switched you to Representative Sampson. And I've been meaning to ask you, what office are you in?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in my own little world over here. Isn't it nice? Swanky looking.
Well, I see all these trophies and all these pictures and things, and I'm not sure what office it is.
That will remain my secret.
Okay. All right.
I thought it was our home office a month ago. with all those
Well,
reports.
You know what?
Remembers is they have quite a library and quite a collection of.
There are all kinds of nooks and crannies in the state capitol.
So, all right.
Well, why don't we move along? And I'm guessing that anyone that's not here is potentially testifying. And I'm sure that some of you may end up going in that direction shortly. So, but thank you. Folks, good afternoon and welcome back. This is the afternoon session of the Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. This afternoon, we are moving from a public hearing to actual work sessions. We have 5 bills that we'll be discussing. And we just want to remind you folks that this is a work session and that you'll hear from the folks that are on screen, and we may invite people in for clarifications or additional information, as we need in order to make our recommendations to the legislature. Please keep in mind that those on screen can be seen as well as heard, and anyone moving into this session, once you make that transition, be alert that you will also this is being recorded. It'll be live as well, and be alert with your mechanics, in particular around the microphone. That said, before we begin, I'd just like to ask that my fellow committee members take a moment to introduce themselves, and I will start with my co-chair, Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Senator. I'm Michael Brennan. I represent District 36, which is part of Portland.
Thank you. And Senator Woodson, please.
Thank you, Dave Woodson, District 33 in York County.
Thank you. Representative Crockett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ed Crockett, District 43, which is part of Portland and part of Felton.
Thank you. And Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Jan Dodge, House District 97, Belfast, Northport, and Waldo. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Representative Lyman.
Wrong button. Good afternoon, Sheila Lyman, District 74, J, Livermore Falls, and Powder Livermore. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative McCray.
Yes, good afternoon, folks. I'm Representative David McCray, up at my home in Fort Fairfield, and I represent the good people of District 148. Good afternoon.
Thank you. And Representative Millette.
Afternoon, I'm Rebecca Millette. I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth.
Thank you. Representative, not back yet. Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Sue Salisbury, and I represent House District 35, which is part of Westbrook.
Thank you. Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative Heidi Sampson, live from the state capitol, representing the good people of House District 21, Alfred, Limerick, Shapley, Newfield, and Parsonsfield.
Thank you. And Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Paul Stearns. I represent House District 119 in Piscataquis County.
Thank you very much. In addition to committee members, we have some outstanding help in our clerk, Sam Baker. Sam will kind of help us out managing and specifically the order, and as well as any difficulties that you or us may have or encounter with our electronics and system. I was in our committee started with some trouble today, and one I just came from was still having it. So that's possible. We also have our analyst, Sam Senfit, and you'll hear from Sam this afternoon relative to our bills and workshop as he presents his analysis. Hillary may or may not be here, I guess, at some point. I think maybe the last bill. In any case, folks, thank you for being here. And we are going to start our workshop relative to LD 1318, which was an act to increase high school graduation rates for students experiencing education disruption. And Sam, if you would be kind enough to,
Can I go ahead and share my screen?
thank you.
That's the right one. This is the work session for LD 1318, an act to increase high school graduation rates for students experiencing education disruption. This bill amends the laws regarding students who experience education disruption and Department of Education diplomas as follows. First, it amends the definition of education disruption to include migrant students who have been identified as such by the United States Department of Education's Migrant Education Program, and immigrant students who have not been attending one or more schools in any one or more states or territories for more than 3 academic years in the aggregate. It amends the process for applying for a Department of Education diploma by requiring that the responsible school provide support for the completion and submission of an application for a Department of Education diploma for students who have experienced education disruption, provides that community providers may assist in the application process, and specifies that a diploma may be issued to a student who completes the minimum requirements for a high school diploma, and that, while the Commissioner of Education's review team may seek clarification on evidence submitted, the Commissioner may not require additional information. Third, it amends the definition of schoolwork recognition plan for students experiencing education disruption to specify that a schoolwork recognition plan is developed and updated in collaboration with the responsible school, the student, the parent or guardian, previous schools, interim programs, and other agencies. It also specifies that a schoolwork recognition plan includes, but is not limited to, a summary of the student's achievement related to the appropriate learning results, a compilation of full and partial credits and other achievement recognitions earned, any identification of gaps between the student's achievement and the achievement typical of peers, and a plan for maximizing progress and closing gaps. Fourth, it amends the law regarding continuing educational progress during and after educational disruption to provide uniform expectations for schools to support the academic progress of all students experiencing education disruption, regardless of the type of disruption, including developing or updating a schoolwork recognition plan within 10 days and making available instructional materials for students within 5 school days of a school becoming aware of the education disruption. It also specifies that for every student who experiences disruption that leads to enrollment in a new responsible school, the new school shall provide the student with an adult staff or mentor to facilitate the student's transition. 5, it requires a responsible school to assist a student experiencing education disruption in completing an application for the Department of Education diploma if the student will not be able to graduate by the end of the student's 4th year of secondary school. And finally, it creates a credit accrual options for a student experiencing education disruption who changes schools after the student's 2nd year of high school, requiring schools to either award credit for a similar course taken elsewhere, waive a specific graduation requirement, or provide an alternative means by which a student can earn the needed credit in time to graduate. It allows a student to receive a diploma from a previously attended school if the student can meet the graduation requirements of that school, but cannot complete the new school's requirements. The committee heard testimony from multiple individuals in favor of the bill. It was noted that in 2018, the overall high school graduation rate in Maine was 86.8%, but for youth experiencing homelessness, it was 57.7%, and for youth in foster care, it was 56%. As currently drafted, the bill creates a pathway for youth to get a state diploma rather than a school-specific diploma. Youth without a high school diploma or GED are 4.5 times more likely to experience homelessness as young adults. In multiple other states, there are laws that streamline and facilitate access to state diplomas specifically for students experiencing homelessness, exempt students from district-specific graduation requirements when they can get off track because of changing schools, and streamline the award and accrual of partial credits. The high mobility, trauma, hunger, and other effects of homelessness means that for some students, an adjusted or alternative diploma may be their only path to graduation. This bill provides appropriate flexibility for students and DOE to maximize graduation while ensuring students do meet necessary requirements and proficiencies to be ready for the workforce or post-secondary education. This will improve implementation of several requirements of the federal McKinney-Vento Act, including the requirement that states have procedures that ensure that homeless youth are identified and awarded equal access to appropriate secondary education and support services, including by identifying and removing barriers that prevent youth described in this clause from, that is homeless youth, from receiving appropriate credit for full or partial coursework satisfactorily completed while attending a prior school in accordance with state, local, and school policies. It was noted that the Every Student Succeeds Act requires disaggregation of graduation data for homeless and foster students. As stated, two of the biggest issues homeless students face are a lack of credit portability from district to district and accommodation for partial credits. In the 2017-18 school year in Maine, 351 students were identified as unaccompanied homeless youth by the Maine Department of Education. This number does not include youth who experience homelessness as part of a family. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the average high school graduate earns $10,386 less per year than someone who does not graduate, or more per year rather than someone who does not graduate. About half of homeless youth do change schools at least once between the ages of 10 and 17, and more than a quarter change more than once. There were no opponents to the bill, but neither for nor against the bill. The MPA noted that many of the things that are described in this bill already occur in many districts. They do support aligning of the definitions suggested in the bill. I did want to flag that I think it's a little ambiguous here. There's a possibility this would be flagged as a mandate. We will know when we get the fiscal note, but I just did want to just note that. I also wanted to note that LD 1916, an act to increase high school graduation rates for students experiencing homelessness or in foster care, was considered by this committee in the 129th. It received a divided report, but it died upon the adjournment of the last session. It's very similar, but it is not identical to this bill. The former bill focused kind of generally on homeless children. This bill does include some additional language focused on migrant and immigrant children, but it also still includes the homeless children that were identified in the prior version of the bill. And I included a link here to the McKinney-Vento Act, which is a federal law that provides protections to homeless children in an effort to ensure that they receive an equal education to house children. The preliminary fiscal has not yet been determined for this bill, and I will stop sharing my screen so you can see each other.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions at this time? I actually do see a hand up already. Senator Woodson.
Thank you, sir. Sam, it was mentioned that language in this bill already is in, there's language similar to it. Does that create a problem?
I don't think it creates a problem. I think the MPA wanted to raise that a lot of school districts are doing some of the things that are anticipated in the bill, but I don't think that's a problem from a legal perspective. No.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Senate, on the mandate issue, is that related to the school planning process that is included for migrant students in the bill?
I think so. I hesitated whether to include that note or not, but I didn't want the committee to be surprised if this is flagged. The bill does anticipate some activities on behalf of school districts. I think in multiple areas. So I wouldn't be surprised if OFBR does flag this as a potential.
But those activities that are described in the bill are no different than activities that they're providing now to homeless persons or children in foster care. But by the extension of migrant students, that's where the potential added cost comes.
I think so. It's not one of those ones that's a blaring mandate, but I think it's a it's a
Okay.
possibility.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? I do see a couple of hands up. Yes, Representative Salisbury, followed by Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've had some other bills recently regarding diplomas and Department of Ed. Can we just talk about how these compare? How this one will compare to that, if there's any overlap? I don't know the answer to that one.
You know, that one's hard for me to offer and to answer offhand because those were Hillary's bills, so I'm
okay.
afraid I would venture into waters that I'm not as familiar with. I apologize. I can certainly get that for you, but I don't have that offhand.
Okay, thank you.
And Senator Woodson.
If there's no other questions or objections, I would like to make a motion not to pass.
I saw, I think we had no other hands, so I will entertain that, sir. And I did see a second by Representative Crockett. So a motion's been made ought to pass. And second by Senator Woodson and seconded by Representative Crockett. Any further discussion, questions? Representative Stearns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I certainly support the intent of the bill. It's to help a particular population of students that need assistance. I get a little bit hesitant when we take a local responsibility and rather than hold the local feet to the fire and say, you've got to do the right thing by by this group of students, and pass that on to the state. I'll support the bill, but again, I just wanted to express that. And next year it might be another segment, and then another segment. And what I would fear would be, you can either go to high school or just go on down and call the state and see what their criteria are. So I throw that out there. I'm going to support the bill. I had an experience once as a principal where I had a little fella in 4th grade that had been to 16 schools, and he was not considered migrant. And that blew my mind. And I could not get access those funds for him. So my heart is with that population. But wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any hands. I do have Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I fully expect Representative Stearns will be on this committee forever, and we'll make sure that we don't allow the educational value of our diplomas to go anywhere south. Certainly not on his watch, and I suspect on anybody else's. I plan to support the bill as well.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Sam if you would be kind enough, then we're going to move this along. If you would call the roll, please.
Senator, I think
Oh,
Sam Senef might have a question first.
Okay, well, yeah, and the hand is hiding in the state emblem up there, and I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
This is just my reminder to OTPA because of fiscal note.
Thank you very much. So the motion actually is ought to pass as amended due to the fiscal note. Appreciate that, Sam.
Thank you.
Sam Baker, if you would be kind enough, sir, to call the roll.
Yes, Senator. Senator Rafferty.
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry.
Yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson.
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan. Representative Brennan, you muted.
Yes. Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette.
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray. Representative McCray, you're muted.
Yay.
Representative McCray votes yay. Representative Dodge.
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett.
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury.
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns.
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson.
Yes.
Representative Sampson votes yes. Representative Lyman.
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach. Not with us currently. Okay, Senator. So it is unanimous of those present and voting in favor of the motion, 12-0.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you, committee members. Representative Libby? Senator Libby, I'm sorry.
Senator Libby had his hand raised.
He did. I see
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank the committee for your vote today. I appreciate your patience as I talked your ear off this afternoon. Thanks for sticking with it.
Thank you. And you have a great day. Folks, thanks for working that through, and I will call the session on 13-18 to a close. And we will open our next work session, which is LD 1451, an act to align the expulsion process with school disciplinary policies. And if you would be so kind, Sam.
I'm gonna share my screen. Right, this is LD 1451, an act to align the expulsion process with school disciplinary policies. This bill requires that a school board incorporate disciplinary policies into its due process standards for determining whether to expel a student. A school board is required to consider the following. 1, focusing on positive interventions and expectations and avoiding focusing exclusively on unacceptable student behavior. 2, focusing on positive and restorative interventions that are consistent with evidence-based practices rather than set punishments for specific behavior, and avoiding so-called zero tolerance practices unless specifically required by federal or state law, rule, or regulation. 3, allowing administrators to use their discretion to fashion appropriate discipline that examines the circumstances pertinent to the case at hand. And 4, providing written notice to the parents of the students when the school is suspended from school, regardless of whether the suspension is an in-school or an out-of-school suspension. The committee heard testimony in favor of the bill. Note that the goal is to align disciplinary policies so they're consistent across the state. A discrepancy was noted, and I'm actually just going to hold off reading this because I go through this in more detail a little further on, and I will cover all of this as well as this right here. It was noted that intervention plans addressed in these and other sections of statute should provide documentation if fidelity to statute regarding a focus on restorative interventions is occurring. To argue it makes more work demonstrates a lack of awareness with existing statute. There's enormous harm caused by expulsion. A disproportionate number of expelled youths have disabilities. Punishment such as expulsion by itself is often the first step in confirming an antisocial identity, and the lesson learned is how to keep from getting caught rather than how to live responsibly. Opponents of the bill noted the bill is unnecessary because no change in the expulsion law is needed to achieve the bill's purposes. The expulsion law states that a proper investigation of students' behavior and due process, if found necessary, for the peace and usefulness of a school, the school board shall expel. And I will review that piece in a little more detail further on too. The statute this bill would amend already requires that a school board adopt a code of conduct that focuses on positive and restorative interventions and avoid zero tolerance practices unless specifically required. The peace and usefulness clause tells us that the purpose of an expulsion is to protect the school from disruption and harm, not to punish the student. It allows and encourages the administration and board to follow restorative practices and is not zero tolerance. Neither for nor against noted that school systems do have specific expulsion policies in place and it is in statute. Discipline data was requested from DOE. They sent that this morning, and I did forward everyone the Excel spreadsheet that has some pretty detailed data on in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions, and expulsions. And I believe Mr. Shea is here from the department if the committee would want to go into that data in further detail. Okay, so this is where I want to go through the specifics of the questions that were brought up in testimony, and the committee asked that I would go through this analysis and determine if, in my opinion, the statute appears to be inconsistent. So the inconsistency that was discussed was a thought that in parts of statute, there is language that appears to be zero tolerance like, but in other parts of statute, there is a focus on restorative justice. And the statement made was that those appear to be in direct conflict. So I want to go through that in some degree of detail so that the committee can understand what is being discussed here. So I have provided here the current statutes at 20A MRSA section 1001, and the subsections in question are subsections 9, 9A, and 15. So subsection 9 here discusses the investigation and proceedings that must occur prior to expulsion. So you see this header language here says, following a proper investigation of a student's behavior and due process proceedings pursuant to subsection 8A, if found necessary for the peace and usefulness, a school board shall expel. And then listed out are the situations in which expulsion shall take place. So if you look under 9A, 9A is the procedure specific to students who are being expelled or suspended under the requirements of the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act. So the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act requires that schools expel for at least a year students who bring certain weapons to school. So in order to get federal funding, states need to have a law that complies with the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act. So that is 9A. So 15 is the Code of Conduct, which describes the district-wide student code of conduct and the requirements for that conduct as regards discipline. All right, so two issues raised. So first, it was stated that, well, 15A states that a school board shall consider district-wide disciplinary policies that A, focus on positive interventions and expectations and avoid zero tolerance policies, and B, focus on positive and restorative interventions. Subsection 9 states that students shall be expelled if they are deliberately disobedient or deliberately disorderly, and there is therefore an inherent conflict between positive restoration interventions and zero tolerance within statute. I looked at this very closely and I read it many times to see, and this is again my reading of it, and I understand others might have different readings, but upon review, it appears to me that the language in subsection 9 does allow for some discretion by the board, and that is because the header language in that subsection reads, again, following a proper investigation of the student's behavior and due process proceedings pursuant to subsection 8A, if found necessary for the peace and usefulness of the school, a school board shall expel. So it appears to me that that language does not require automatic expulsion, but the board does have some discretion and some determination in looking at this if found necessary for the peace and usefulness school. I think the question for the committee then is whether that language is in contrast to the policy established in section 15 to focus on positive interventions and expectations. I think it's true that those sections do have a different feel. Subsection 9 is the language is it is a kind of firmer feel than the language in section 15, but it is not I think so prescriptive that it is necessarily a conflict with 15. I think they were written at different times and to kind of have a different approach. So the committee could certainly make that decision that they wanted that language to be different. But if the question is, are they inherently in conflict? I don't think so. All right, so the other issue raised was that subsections 9 and 9A are inconsistent because subsection 9 uses shall expel language, while the latter, which again is the Gun-Free Schools Act, states that the school board may authorize the superintendent to modify the requirement for expulsion on a case-by-case basis. I think that the discussion is similar subsection 9, that header language does indicate some level of board discretion. And again, the committee, if the committee wishes, could add some modulating language to section 9, similar to the language in section 9A. But again, I don't think it is on its face absolutely contradictory. I hope that makes some sense. I tried to lay it out as clearly as I could. Ms. Royal, who provided extensive testimony, I did want to point out that in her testimony, she had attached additional edits, suggested edits for the committee. I did also want to say in LD 474, I do provide quite a few links to additional information about school discipline, which the committee may find useful. So that is what I have for you on this bill. And I will stop share so you can talk to each other. And I'm happy to talk more about that language piece if that's confusing to anybody.
Well, thank you, Sam. Does anyone have any questions relative to Sam's breakdown and analysis there? Representative Brennan, followed by Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Senate, thank you very much for your analysis and your work. You clearly put a lot into this. I'm still kind of waiting for the light bulb to go off in my head that says, oh, now I understand this in a way that kind of gives me an idea of a direction that we should be moving forward with. And there's a part of me that simply says we should just ask you to go through and clean up the language and make it as consistent as we possibly can without us trying to puzzle through what those inconsistencies in different subsections look like and don't look like. But is that, would that be inappropriate to be asking that?
If the committee wished to have similar, for example, similar language in section 9 as occurs in section 9A, again, that kind of modulating language, I think I can do that. I wouldn't want to touch on any sort of policy issues, but I can mirror some of that language so it appears more internally consistent.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Stearns, please.
Along the same lines, I concur with Sam's analysis. In part 9 does say shall, but earlier on it's preceded by if. So there's that makes quite a difference. And I think any tweaking of the language will end up being with, it might make it more clear, but it will be the same result as the current language. I wouldn't touch it.
Yes, Representative Crockett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, Sam, would we need to tidy up the language so that it was more in sync with 15, or are they mutually exclusive?
I think you could do that too, to align all three, kind of tie them together a little bit more than they are tied together currently.
Okay.
Representative Millette.
Thank you. I think anything we can do to help make Maine law easier to understand and more consistent in terminology, the better. Especially around such an issue as discipline and code of conduct. So I support where Representative Brennan is going. I think that would be useful.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Representative Brennan.
Just for the sake of expediency, I'll move on to pass on 1451 as amended, with the stipulation that we do have language review and ask our staff analysts to draft the language in alignment with the discussion that we just had, and that we have an opportunity to review that language review.
I would second that, Mr. Chair, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Brennan, for the motion, as well as a second, Representative Dodge. Any comments? I'm sorry, Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I understand it, this bill is not a great deal different than existing laws, except for the fact that the motion is going to clarify or clean up the language a little bit to be more consistent. Am I hearing that right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I am going to request that Sam will call a roll and just review that the motion was by Representative Brennan ought to pass as amended, and and he added in the language review and alignment as previously noted, seconded by Representative Dodge. Sam, if you would, please.
Yes, Senator. Senator Rafferty?
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry?
Yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson?
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan?
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette?
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray?
Yes.
It's okay. Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge?
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett?
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury?
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns?
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson?
Yes.
Representative Sampson votes yes. Representative Lyman?
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach?
Yes.
Representative Roach votes yes. So, Senator, it's unanimous of those present and voting in favor of the motion, 13-0.
Thank you very much, Sam and committee members. I appreciate that. And Sam Senfit for your analysis. I will call the workshop on LD 1451 to a close. And I believe during introductions, not everyone had an opportunity to do so. If I'm going on memory, I'll give Senator Daughtry, Representatives McCray and Representative Roach an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Maddie Daughtry, represent State Senate District 24, which are the communities of Brunswick, Hartsville, North Yarmouth, Freeport, and Pownell. And I do have 3 other bills this afternoon, so I will be jumping back and forth between the rabbit hole quite a bit.
Well, we can grant temporary leave as needed. Representative McCray.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In my head, I thought I had done this, but I'm Dave McCray, District 148 up in the county.
Sir, you may have. I'm sorry if it's not in my head. Maybe a lot of people are coming and going, trying to keep track.
I wasn't sure myself.
And Representative Roach.
Thank you. I'm still not sure whether I'm here or still at school, but I think I made it home by the sounds of the dog. I am Tim Roach, District 7 Wells, and I apologize for tardiness.
That's okay. We're good to move into our next work session on LD 961. And 961 is an act to provide equity and access to the application for the National School Lunch Program and school breakfast programs.
I'm gonna
Sam, sir.
go ahead, share my screen again here. All right. This is LD 961, an act to provide equity and access to applications for a National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. This bill requires the internet-based application for free or reduced price meals developed for the Department of Education be made available on the department's publicly accessible website. It allows a public school to make the application available on its publicly accessible website. It requires the department to endeavor to provide the application in various languages reflecting the student populations of public schools in the state. It requires all public schools to continue to distribute the paper application. It also requires that data submitted through the internet-based application not be visible to the department and to be transmitted directly to the applicable public school. Proponents of the bill testified that this session has demonstrated the public can gain better access to government when work is done online. Typically, most business now is done online. Parents should be able to submit income information for the benefit online, which they must annually do. Paper forms are easily misplaced and returned. Families may feel shame sharing information with school officials, especially in small communities. They may personally know school officials. Schools statewide struggle to collect these forms. When an eligible student is not signed up for the program, they may accrue unnecessary debt. In 2019, the Maine School Management Association surveyed school districts, and 18 districts reported a total of $330,000 in school meal debt. Taxpayers often end up covering the deficit. There are also implications for districts that rely on school meal program eligibility numbers for federal funding for the meals program and for other programs such as the summer food program and the at-risk after-school meals program. Maine reported about 17,000 missing applications from previously eligible students this year. In the 129th, funding was secured so that DOE could provide an online meal benefit application free of charge for districts. Currently, there's about 70 districts who are using it, but more than half of districts are not. Some do have their own online application, but many do not have any online option. This bill would require DOE to have a link on their website accessible by all Maine families, and the data would be transferred confidentially to the appropriate district. A single application would provide easy access for all. Almost all families do have technology that would allow them to complete this form. LD 961 does not replace paper forms, it supplements them. Noted well-fed kids do better in school. This provides an easy fix. English language learning families should have options to apply in languages they read and are most comfortable with, and the application should include language accessibility. This application would make a higher participation rates rather in the school meals program. Right now, about 30% of Mainers report difficulty paying for household expenses. This commenter suggested an amendment to strengthen the language regarding language access. USDA guidance released in 2014 requires state agencies and schools that receive federal funding to ensure language is not a barrier to school meal benefits. The contractor, it was noted that the department has this capability to provide information in multiple languages. For many kids, school meals is the only reliable source of nutrition. It was noted that Oregon has offered a single online application. I did go look at it, it's true. The department has made an online application available to schools as directed by Public Law 2019, Chapter 480. It is available in multiple languages. The department's Office of Child Nutrition has been providing ongoing training to SAU staff members and families to support the usage of the application. There was no testimony against. There was no testimony neither for nor against. Representative Millett has proposed an amendment to the bill, and that amendment states that all public schools must accept data submitted through the internet-based application. And I do have her amendment up here as well. I'm just checking that that's the same. Yes. Sorry. Potential issues or technical problems or other issues for consideration. So this is just, again, a note. There was testimony regarding the bill language that the department shall endeavor to provide the internet-based application in various languages reflecting the student population of public schools in the state. And it was suggested that this language is insufficient to meet the requirements of federal law, which provides that communications with families regarding the school lunch program be in a language or rather understandable in uniform format and to the maximum extent possible in a language that parents and guardians can understand. I did provide link to additional language regarding language accessibility in the school lunch program. There is guidance from the federal government. Just some notes, LD 701 from the 129th, an act to modernize the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program was heard and passed as amended. It required the department to make available an internet-based application for the school lunch program. The department has done this. There's a link to the school lunch program website here. There's a link to the Maine Department of Education school nutrition report, which provides data on the school lunch and breakfast programs. The preliminary fiscal for this bill has not yet been completed, and that is what I've got for you on this bill.
Thank you again, Sam. I do have a question, at least, by Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Seneff, for that analysis. At whatever point is appropriate, could either you or the sponsor please answer a question about our actions in the 129th, and if those actions that we took also increased the portability of this application process for a student's family from school unit to school unit, please? Or is this something that this bill will do? Please, thank you.
I see Representative Millette nodding her head, so she might be able to answer that question better than I, or perhaps somebody from the Department of Education may be able to answer the portability question specifically.
Thank you.
I'm
Whoops.
gonna go to our committees. She was nodding her head. Representative Millette, do you have an answer to that, or?
Only in general, that yes, this bill will make it much more accessible for more students and families because not all districts were participating. So this is designed to try to get it to be more universally accessed. And of course, from Full Plates, Full Potential is in the attendees. If you want more specific information about that, I know you're good. But yeah, she can be a resource for us if there are any further questions.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any further discussions or questions on this? Yes, Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, if someone from the department is here, I'd be interested on why schools are not participating in it. Is it a time, personnel, or technology barrier, or just a lack of desire? I'd kind of be interested in that because it makes great sense to me to have this opportunity for folks to get another way for them to, for most people, I think, to fill out their forms.
Thank you. Is there someone in DOE available that could answer that?
Yes, Senator, we have Walter Beasley with us.
Thank you, Sam. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mr. Beasley.
Good afternoon. It is a good afternoon. So the question Representative Stearns asked about why school districts aren't participating in this. To be honest with you, right up front, I was surprised it started off so slow as well. Why more schools didn't jump on this? Some already are doing something from a software company they're already working with, might be different than Nutrilink. Others, I don't know, just no desire to do it. And some of the small schools, you know, with 6 kids, they decided they didn't want to do it. It wasn't worth the work. And then I did find an occasion where they didn't know what I was talking about. So I think it needs more communication, more education to push us on further.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions? Yes, Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, quick draw McGraw, I ain't. Mr. Beasley, thank you for being here, and thank you, Mr. Chair. So to my question about portability, is the fact that there are a number of schools who are not participating hindering the portability capabilities of families who move from school district to school district, please? Thank you.
So when a school district, when a student moves from school district to school district, the two school districts are supposed to communicate with each other and share that application back and forth, as long as from food service department to food service department. A lot of school districts will say, the parent will come in and say, look, I was reduced in XYZ school. The director will say, okay, we'll give you the 10 days or whatever it takes you to get that application over to us, or for them to get the application. So the application, electronic or paper, should go back and forth. If you're doing an online application, when a parent does the online application is sent to the district that the parent is registered with, because we don't want an application flowing around two or three different districts without the parent consent. So when the parent logs in, they pick what school district and they pick what school, and that application goes directly to that district and to that school. Does that answer your question?
A follow-up, Mr. Chair, if I might?
Yes.
Thank you. So is there something else that we could do or should do that would make that any better at this point? In your opinion, please. Thank you.
I go back to education and communication. I think, honestly, I think we can do a better job at our office making sure we put that out there. The problem we have with the school lunch program, with some other departments as well, is a turnover rate. We get so much between secretaries and child nutrition staff. We get them all trained, and then there's a change in staff, and then we have to retrain again. So it's keeping up with a constant turnover of staff is causing a little bit of a problem, being consistent between all the school districts and what we expect to see.
Oh dear. May I ask one other question, Mr. Chair, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So the fact that there are still some schools who are using a different program other than Nutrilink is not really the issue here. There are other things that need to happen. Is that correct?
There are some that are using other than Nutrilink because their point of service and other computer systems tie into that. But I don't think that's a major factor. I think a major factor is communication education.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize.
That's okay. Representative Salisbury, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if you are ready for a motion.
I do have an additional question, I believe, first. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of following up with Mr. Beasley on that. He mentioned that school with a tiny population of 6 or 4 students, something like that. Would there be unintended consequences to a tiny program like that if they were required to train and get the machinery to do this?
I couldn't answer that on the local level, but on the state level, there's no negative impact that I can think of at all.
Okay. It reminds me a lot of the tiny town offices and trying to do fishing licenses and that kind of thing. They're very unique.
Yeah, one person does everything.
Thank you. Representative Millette, and I'm coming back to you, Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. So districts can continue to use their own applications if they want to. They just need to accept the data. And the data is sent by the department to them. So I don't see that as being any barrier. And I would just ask before, that if there were to be a motion fairly soon, that it incorporate the suggested change to align with the federal law, statute around from Department of Ag. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Saying no other questions, I would ask for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move ought to pass for LD 961 as amended.
And I second that joyfully, following the federal guidelines. Motion maker, is that part of your motion? The
That
Department
would
of
be
Ed.
as amended, is that right? Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So I have Representative Salisbury's motion and seconded by Representative Dodge. Any other questions? Representative Millet? Oh, sorry. Okay. Any other questions, discussions? Sam, I will please ask that if you'd be kind enough to call the roll.
Yes, Senator. Senator Rafferty?
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry?
Sorry, the dog just was a little bit sick. Yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson?
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan?
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millet?
Yes.
Representative Millet votes yes. Representative McCray?
Right on time, yes.
Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge?
Joyful yay, please.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett?
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury?
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns?
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson?
No.
Representative Sampson votes no. Representative Lyman?
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach?
Yes.
Representative Roach votes yes. So Senator, it is 12 in favor of the motion, 1 opposed.
And we'll assume that the minority report was ought not to pass.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. So the motion and carries. And thank you for your work on LD 961. Sam, appreciate your analysis, breakdown, and committee's work. Thank you all. Moving forward, so I'm sorry, I got to end the session on LD 961, and moving forward, I am going to do first pass the gavel to my co-chair, Representative Brennan.
I just caught it.
Awesome catch. Former receiver, I'm sure. Thank you, Representative Brennan.
Thank you. So we have 2 bills and work sessions left for this afternoon. We have LD 474 and 552. And then do we also have language review?
Yes.
Yes, of course. That's always our homework. All right. So we're going to go to LD 474, and we'll open the work session on LD 474, and we'll turn to our staff analyst for a analysis of the bill.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen once more here. All right, this is LD 474, an act regarding school discipline for Maine's youngest children. So I apologize in advance. This is a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. This bill requires the following. First, the Department of Education to create a list of available free and low-cost legal services and update it annually. 2, that school superintendents include, as part of the written notice provided to students and parents prior to expulsion hearings, the list of available free and low-cost legal services prepared by the DOE. And 3, that a student code of conduct may not prescribe suspension, expulsion, or the withholding of recess as a consequence of a violation of the student code of conduct by any student enrolled in grade 5 or below, except as provided under the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act. So there was an awful lot of testimony here. And if the committee is okay with it, I may forego reading it because it is so lengthy, but I will do so if the committee prefers. Is that okay if I skip the reading of testimony here? All right, thank you. I'm worried I might lose people a few pages down. Okay, so the committee did request some additional information, and the first request was to clarify how suspension is defined. So Maine state statute doesn't specifically define suspension. However, the U.S. Department of Education does define in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension separately. And actually, if you looked at Mr. Riley from DRM sent a memo this morning, which also included the same information. But in-school suspension is defined by the U.S. Department of Education as instances in which a child is temporarily removed from his or her regular classroom for at least half a day, but remains under the direct supervision of school personnel. Direct supervision means that school personnel are physically in the same location as students under their supervision. Just a little note about this half a day piece. I looked at multiple sources for this definition, and some of them omitted that half a day language. To me, there appears to be a little bit of question as to whether and in what cases that provision is used, because there was inconsistency in the documents, in the federal subregulatory documents I found that reference this definition. Out of school suspension, the U.S. Department of Education defines two types of out of school suspension. First, for students without disabilities and students with disabilities served only under Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act, out of school suspension means excluding a student from school for disciplinary reasons for 1 day or longer. This does not include students who serve their suspension in school. And for students with disabilities under the IDEA, instances in which a child is temporarily removed from his or her regular school for disciplinary purposes to another setting. This includes both removals in which no IEP services are provided because the removal is 10 days or less. And it also includes removals in which the child continues to receive services according to his or her IEP. And the reason those are separated is because the feds require that those be tracked separately. So school districts must separately track information of students who are disciplined and who have an IEP. There was additional information requested from DOE, the number of suspension and expulsions by district if possible over the past several years for grades pre-K to 5. Again, the department did provide a spreadsheet with discipline information broken down in multiple categories. To the percentage of children disciplined who had IEPs, I believe that also is included in the information provided by DOE, as well as any information DOE has on use of positive behavior intervention. And again, I believe Mr. Shea is here from the department and would be able to provide that information. I did want to break down the current law and the proposed changes to make it clear to the committee what this bill would do. So I've listed the current law here. Again, this is section 1001, subsection 8A, which describes the due process standards for expulsion. And so those standards, again, are laid out in statute. And what this bill would do is add a requirement that the superintendent provide a list of available free and low-cost legal services, which must be created and updated annually by the Department of Education. So just to be clear, this bill doesn't provide a right to free legal services. It requires the department provide a list of free and low-cost legal services. I think that's an important distinction. In subsection 9, which to look familiar, this is what we had just looked at in 1451. This provides the conditions under which a student may be expelled or suspended. What this bill would do is add a caveat that a student it may not be expelled or suspended if that student is in grade 5 or below. Again, additional language similarly making that clear here, except that there is this clause here that says, except is provided under subsection 9A. If you'll recall, subsection 9A is the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act, and that is required. That cannot be per federal law. That there must be an exception for weapons violation. In section 15, which describes the student code of conduct, the proposed change is that except as provided under subsection 9A, again, the Gun-Free Schools Act, a student code of conduct may not prescribe suspension, expulsion, or the withholding of recess as a consequence of a violation of a code of conduct by any student in grade 5 or below. So those are the proposed changes. Some issues I wanted to raise. This is fairly minor and probably more a drafting thing than anything else, but in subsection, in the first part of 9, the proposed language in the blocked language, at the end, there's an exception for 9A, but that the language in the first paragraph doesn't mention that exception. I think probably just to be safe, you would want to have that consistently referenced throughout the exception for the Gun-Free Schools Act. Additional information that for the committee to consider. A similar bill was heard by the Education Committee in the 129th. This was LD 2016, an act regarding school discipline for Maine's youngest students, provided that a student code of conduct may not provide for suspension, expulsion, or withholding of recess for student in grade 5 or below, except as provided by the Gun-Free Schools Act. It also provides that any student enrolled in grade 6 or above eligible for free or reduced price meals is entitled to representation at state expense during an expulsion proceeding. Again, this bill does not have that same provision. That bill did receive not to pass out of committee. LD 1010 in the 129th required DOE develop a model disciplinary policy focusing on positive interventions and designed to close economic, disability-related, gender, and racial gaps. That bill was enacted. I did include and email to you with the materials, the report back letter from the department that this committee received, as well as the model policy that DOE developed. So you should have that in your possession. A note that the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act provides certain safeguards for kids with IEPs. I included a link to those regulations as well as a U.S. Department of Education question and answer sheet. And at the state level, 9B describes, sorry, that's a typo there, it's 9B, describes disciplinary sanctions for students with disabilities. Let's see. I did also want to see what the trends were nationally around this topic. So I took a look at other states and found that there has been, it appears, a movement towards more loosening up or disallowing of certain types of discipline for younger children. There's quite a bit of variation throughout, but there's been a fair amount of legislation in this area in the past several years, and several states have disallowed suspension and or expulsion for younger students. That varies. Some states focused on pre-K and K. Some states went up to the middle school years, and some states fell somewhere in between. So I listed out some summaries for you to so you could get an idea of where the trend is nationally on this topic. Again, quite a bit of legislation out there. Provided some links to resources, the Center on Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, which provides extensive information on positive behavior intervention. The Maine School Safety Center, good source of information. I included the joint statement of commitment and support for diversity, equity, and inclusion in Maine schools, copy of the Maine 2019 Kids Count report, some American Pediatrics statements on school discipline, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services statement on suspension and expulsion in early childhood settings, Commission on Civil Rights report on school to prison pipeline, some education of the Commission of the States policies, policy statements, The U.S. Office of Civil Rights Data Collection Tool, which has a lot of data on school discipline. You can create reports using that tool. National Center for Children in Poverty, a pretty extensive report on Maine's early care and education and children with challenging behavior. Preliminary fiscal is not yet determined, and thank you for bearing with me while I went through that bill analysis. I'll stop sharing so you can talk.
Thank you for that review. Before we get to Representative Morales and to Mr. Shea, are there any questions from members of the committee of the review that was just provided by Mr. Senate? Senator Whitson. Senator Whitson.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Sam, how many people testified either for or against?
Let me look here, Senator. Let's see. So neither for nor against, didn't have any. DOE testified information only. Opposed, we have two individuals, Eileen King and Dr. Courtier testified in opposition. And I did just want to mention, I certainly don't want to forget, Representative Morales has an amendment proposed for this bill as well.
Would the amendment affect or address the Eileen King and was it MPA that testified against it?
I don't think so, Senator. I think that their testimony was largely around the need for flexibility for kids who had few alternatives to discipline. That was the concern that they addressed.
That they had, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions for our staff analysts at this point, I'd like to welcome Representative Morales. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I know you may have had to wait just a little bit because we got started a little later than we expected. But as it was noted, and earlier today, we got a copy of an amendment that was sent to the committee from you. And I think now would probably be a good time if you could walk us through the amendment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Representative Brennan and Sam. That was a phenomenal presentation. Thank you so much for that. I haven't seen enough of those really great presentations of policy, so I really appreciated that. And I'll just, before I start, I just want to address Senator Woodson's question that the intent of this amendment is, in fact, to address the flexibility that some of the concerns were at the hearing. That's exactly what this amendment is intended to do. So the goal of this legislation is to reduce the number of out-of-school suspensions for our youngest children, which for the last 4 years on average was 944 per year. And the amendment that you all received, I'll walk through it. It includes minor changes to the bill, but that specifically address the concerns that we heard at the hearing. And I spent a significant amount of time with the DOE working through it just to make sure we're consistent with best practices with stakeholders and making sure that I was considering all of those concerns. So the bill, just walking through the amendment document that I provided you, it does allow for where we talk about you can't take away recess for discipline. What we heard was that sometimes there's not enough time in the day to use restorative practices to work with a child on their behavior. And so we wanted to make sure that schools had the flexibility to be able to use recess time to do specifically that. And so that's what the language in green in the first paragraph is, is that when we say that we cannot withhold recess as a consequence of a violation of the student code of conduct, in green, it says in limited circumstances where there is no alternative time available, recess time may be used for restorative practices related to the student's behavior. The second sentence goes right to, I think, what is the real meat of this bill, which is around suspensions. And what we did, because we heard that schools are, and from the principals specifically, that they want to have flexibility, that there may be a situation where there's a threat of physical injury, and they want to have that flexibility so that they can suspend a student and so they can make a plan for return to school. So instead of a blanket exception, sort of ban on suspensions and expulsions, I put an amendment here that would allow that kind of a suspension. Out of school suspension is all we're talking about for when there is a threat of serious physical injury, and when there are less restrictive interventions that are just, they wouldn't be effective. So the other piece of this is that out of school suspensions may not exceed 3 school days. So those are the only changes that I made to the legislation that I submitted to you. And I just want to make sure that you all know that I really worked hard with folks to get to what the concerns specifically were. And as you heard from Sam, there has been significant movement in 16 states around this area to remove zero tolerance policy. So we wouldn't really be the first state to be looking at doing something like this. I also included in the document that I provided you all, and I would leave it up to the committee to decide, well, it's your bill, but to decide, do we need to put definitions of out of school suspension, in school suspension in the code, because they are defined, as Sam said, the Office of Civil Rights under the Department of Education has them defined. So I just included them here because I think it's up to you to decide if that's the right place to go. But I believe that this policy really strikes with this amendment the right balance to significantly reduce the numbers of suspensions we see for this age group, while allowing flexibility for schools when they have safety concerns. So thanks very much for allowing me to explain that. You all have received the letter from Atlee Riley, which also includes a story about a young boy who was 7 on the day of our hearing who was suspended for talking about bringing a gun to school on a day when his school class was playing laser tag. And he was a boy who has autism disorder. You also received the testimony of the Maine Association of Pediatrics in support of the bill. And then I'll finally add that Bear Shea from the DOE is here to answer questions and talk about the suspensions definitions, the alternatives that the DOE is working on, and best practices. So I would encourage and hope that he can speak to those issues and any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. So at this point, maybe if we could have a couple of questions for Representative Morales, if necessary. But I do think it's important that we get Mr. Shea in here to kind of run through the numbers that they had gathered and been talked about at the hearing, because there had been some questions about that. So Representative Crockett and Senator Woodson, and then hopefully we can go to Mr. Shea.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, Representative Morales.
Hello.
Just so that I want to be clear, I think I like the bill originally. I like it I like it a lot better with the amendment. The one concern I had, and I think it's covered in the amendment, but I just wanted to share the scenario. If there's a 11-year-old fifth grader who brings a weapon to the school, this doesn't take away the option of expelling that student. Is that correct?
That's correct, because that's federal law under the Gun Free Schools Act. That's right. This can't impact that.
Thank you.
Senator Woodson.
Yes, thank you, sir. And Representative Morales, thank you for your amendment. I I'm concerned about this bill. I mean, and the flexibility that is needed for teachers and administrators to deal with these kids who have these issues. I mean, if you have not been in that situation, I don't know if you can appreciate what they're trying to do and the difficulty in dealing with the situation. So I just need to express that, and I need to listen and hear more as we go on today.
Thank you. I had Representative Stearns and Representative Lyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Morales, you mentioned and I know I read it somewhere, the amount of out-of-school suspensions for annually was what, 964? Was that the number?
The average of the past 4 years is 944. The average of the past 10 years is 730.
Okay, thank you. Now, is that K-12?
Nope, that's pre-K through 5th grade pertaining specifically to this bill that's reported to the DOE.
Well, I think then that I would point out that with about 185,000 total students, I'd need to get the total K-5 population, but I'm going to say that the percentage of out-of-school suspensions is extremely, extremely small. And the notion that schools are rushing to expel or, excuse me, suspend students, I don't believe is the case whatsoever. Many of those, in some cases, are required bookkeeping, if you will. If the student has an IEP and you have an out-of-school suspension or a disciplinary act that requires that, it's imperative to document that. And most schools, I think, choose to document it the same whether a student has an IEP or not. But I think we're all out there in the best interests of kids, but we need to certainly find a good balance and sometimes use tools that that are required to keep the safe operation of the school going.
Thank you, Representative Lyman, and then hopefully we can go to Mr. Shea.
Thank you, Mr.
Could
Chair.
I just respond quickly to Representative Stearns? Is only that I think, Bear Shea is here to talk about that. And I would agree that I'm really grateful that the numbers are low, but I am concerned about the young students and what that really does to them, setting them forth on their educational path. And I know this committee cares deeply about getting students to be at the reading level they're supposed to be at grade 3. And so, keeping kids in school and engaged and learning, even when they have some behaviors, I think is our highest goals. But I know that Bear Shea can answer some of those questions better than I can. Thank you.
Representative Lyman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Morales. If there was ever a time that I could speak eloquently to this, I hope now is. As a person that's newly out of teaching in the classroom for 36 years, it was minimal that children were ever expelled from school. And I believe this work is done so thoughtfully in our K-5, K-6 schools, and being part of a process that I was involved with all different behavioral teams and programs and studying right to the very last day of my teaching on doing what was best for children and working with multiple districts on this. This is work that's being done and the children's needs are put first. And so I just feel like I would not at all want to tie the hands of our local folks that are putting so much effort into doing this job and doing it well and keeping children in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Roach, and then we will go to Mr. Shea.
Yeah, mine is basically a backup to Representative Lyman's. There are times now in my role as a rep, I feel like I must live somewhere else. And and having been in education my whole life, I guess I'm not understand. I struggle to understand these things because I see teachers and administration and people that get into this profession as people that the only reason they do it is because they care about kids. It certainly isn't for the pay or anything like that. They do it because of their love for education, their love for kids. And I'm not saying it's everyone, like every profession, there's bad. But I think what I see, and on the district, not only my district, but district, people busting their butts to make sure kids stay in school and find, especially at that level. I mean, almost exclusively at that level, do you really try to find ways to make sure that kid is in school and doing the job? Are there times? I'm sure there are. I can't tell you the last time my district expelled anybody. I don't know when that is. And maybe I live in nirvana. I don't know. I don't think I do. I think I live in a pretty good place, but but we start to make rules. I mean, the last 2 days have been full of rules that I feel like I don't know where I live anymore. And to be honest with you, I was depressed last night. I'm getting more depressed today because I'm not sure where we're going with this stuff. But that's my opinion.
Thank you, Representative. And I think I really agree with you that teachers love kids. This isn't about teachers at all. My husband's a teacher 20 plus years here in Maine. And so I definitely understand that. And I agree with you, expulsions are rare. And you look at the data that the DOE provided, very, very, very rare, but suspensions are not as rare. And so that's, largely what this bill is really looking at, and to help schools to find those alternatives and to access the resources that the DOE has and is providing, but not all schools are accessing those. But I thank you so much for your service in education. It's so important.
All right, at this point, I think everybody on the committee got, I'm hoping everybody got the email from our legislative analyst on the report from the Department of Education. And I'd like to ask Mr. Shea to join us now from DOE and ask him just to walk us through and comment on that report because there has been several questions about the number of suspensions, number of expulsions, and hopefully Mr. Shea can answer all those questions.
Afternoon, chairs and distinguished committee members. I am here to help.
And
are there specific questions, or would you just like?
Well, if you just walk through the report that you provided to us, and just again, if you could elaborate on the numbers that were provided by Representative Morales and just give us a context for those, I think that would be helpful.
I think one of the useful places to start is looking at suspension as a punishment and using it as a sort of a management tool. And we know that some students do respond to the threat of punishment, and that using suspension in a punitive way as an intervention, we have significant amounts of research that show that that's not an effective tool. So. And one of the issues is that as an intervention, it's really important to have for schools to have that option to be able to intervene and provide safety, particularly in a major substantive threat, for schools to be able to provide safety and security, and that there are best practice systems in place to be able to determine whether it is a major substantive threat and what the incidents and intervention should be, as well as what the wraparound and planning and return interventions are, as best practices show that that's one of the most dangerous places is when students are returned after a suspension. Just because if there isn't planning, then that student continues to feel separated from the group. So one of the things that we've been working towards is not only the trauma-informed practices and looking at those alternatives to discipline, restorative approaches, and those best practices, but also working through the Maine School Safety Center, through the behavioral threat assessment model, which provides a systemic and structured way for schools to be able to not only assess where the threat is at, but then who are the team players, and what are the processes that could be used to support that student. So that the amendment allows for that space, as well as for the use of recess as a time to, a lot of schools don't have time and opportunity to be able to use some of these restorative practices. So I believe that the amendment to allow recess not to be taken away as a punishment, but to be used as a way to process and use these other skills. And that these are resources that we've been working on in the department for this past year and a half, and are going to continue to provide these best practices.
So again, Mr. Shea, I'm looking at the DOE data that you provided to us. Could you just walk us through that quickly? Just so I'm looking at, there is the incident counts, the student count, and special education, but maybe if we and I'm assuming that the count of distinct number of students removed, they're talking about suspensions.
Yes, sorry, I'm just trying to draw it up.
Okay. Does everybody else on the committee have access to this? Representative Dodge, are you saying yes?
I just wondered if Mr. Seneff could pull that up so that we all could be.
Good point. Yes.
If that might be more easily accessible
Thank
for
you.
all.
That's a good point. Yes.
Sure.
Good suggestion.
Can navigate to wherever you want me to navigate.
All right, are there any questions on those specific numbers? I've got the letter the informational letter.
I do have my hand up. I don't know if anyone can see it.
Oh, Representative Crockett and then Representative Stearns.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Mr. Shea, if you could comment on particular, if Sam could move to the incident count tab. It looks noteworthy to me that although the overall numbers, appear small, since 2013, it looks like the incident count has increased 4 times. Can you add any light to those numbers?
I'm sorry, as far as why the numbers have increased?
Ooh, I failed 3 times trying to unmute myself. Finally got there. Yeah, that would be a perfect place to start.
I mean, I think, we're talking about, as you mentioned, we're talking about a specific population. We know that students are disproportionately affected based on, their disability status as well as other things. I think there are many, many reasons that that suspension is used, and I think it really covers the gamut as far as really trying to provide support and safety within schools, as well as as a systematic system for punishment and for discipline, and in response to those. So I think the overall numbers and the increase, I can't comment as to why there's an increase, except that it is being used more often, which could indicate increases in behavior. It can also indicate that that the resources, aren't being used. We know that suspensions don't work to correct behavior. We know that, the research tells us that, the threat of that punishment only works for a certain population of students. And that when it comes to, once students start to become suspended, that it's it's an indicator that's related to many other, lifelong effects. And that there are best practice interventions that can be used to instead of removing a student from the school as a punishment. And I think there's a big difference between, again, that establishing the level of significant of threat and removing a student for that time to create a safety plan and using it as a punishment. And I think that difference is important. So I'm not sure I can answer the question, Representative. I apologize for that.
No, I think that made a very good effort there to do so. And it just struck me, obviously, because student numbers have actually gone down during that period of time, yet the incident and student counts have risen dramatically. So it's certainly eye-opening.
And if I may, one of the pieces is that, suspension, we know that schools don't want to use suspension. They want to keep their students in place. This is, something that we've all talked about. And if that's the case, then really we don't want any suspensions. And so what are the things that are successful in reducing suspensions? What are the pieces that can be used to reduce the disturbance in their academics and their support system? And how are we bringing those issues sort of in-house to provide the support network within the schools rather than removing the students? And I know that that's what schools want. And I think part of it is having access to those resources, and that hasn't been something that's been always available. And I know that the commissioner and the department have really put that forward to make it free, to make it easily accessible, and to have some of that technical support in-house to go through some of that paradigm shift with schools when they're looking at how they're working, particularly with some of our most difficult students.
So I have Representative Stearns, Representative McCray, Representative Roach, and Representative Crockett again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, those data are interesting for sure. It looks like a real anomaly between 2012 and between 2013 and 2014. That doesn't seem, that there seems to be some kind of a reporting difference going on there.
Right.
And I would comment that from 2013 up, those data match the anecdotal information that I get speaking with many educators about the percentage of students coming into school with extreme behavioral issues. And again, that's anecdotal, but it matches this type of data. Do we know that total student count pre-K-5? Was that on a tab, Sam? So for 2020, okay. Can you hold those for a minute? Thanks, that's my question.
$70,000.
That answer your question, Representative Stearns?
Yes, it does. And really, when you take 70,000 students by 175 school days, and then divide, say, 950 or 970 suspensions, it really puts a numeric exclamation mark on how startlingly few times suspensions are used in the student population. I think it's 7 1,000th or 7 10,000ths of a percentage of my math's not good enough once we get too many zeros going, but it's an enormously minute number.
Thank you. Representative McCray and then Representative Roach.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a comment on the numbers. Yeah, I think we all need to be thankful that the numbers are low. And I think somewhere in this discussion or earlier, there was something, and I'm not sure it's germane to the issue, but are there pockets or particular schools that seem to really, I mean, we have X number of suspensions per 10,000 kids or what have you. Are there particular schools or particular pockets where that is abnormally high? Or would we know?
I think we could certainly unpack this data quite a bit more. And I think, this is also it's a longitudinal data, and, looking at the individual counts would be important. What I can tell you is that schools that have implemented some of these best practices have shown that they have reduced their suspension, expulsion, and their school-based violence significantly. And those schools have really worked, on a systemic level to put these best practices in place and to be able to assess, again, where the safety is at with the system. And so I think that sort of answers your question in the opposite direction, but we do know that there are ways to reduce that number even further, and that while it might be a small amount, we know that it's not a successful punishment. And if it is being used as a safety method, best practices would say that we want to have a way to assess that threat, make sure that it is a major substantive threat, and that it has a process to actually resolve that isn't related to a certain number of days, as a punishment, but really having the time to make sure that we have the best plan to reintegrate that student.
Just a very quick follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Do we have a breakdown, or would you, not that we need it now, just I'm more curious than anything. Is there a breakdown on these suspensions of however 900 as to whether they are disciplinary issues or are they for the safety of others issues?
I'm not sure. I know that the numbers are low enough that we have a difficult time doing it district by district. I would have to come back to the committee with that information on if we can break it out that way.
No, I don't think that's necessary. I was just hoping you had it right at the tip of your tongue and you could give it to us. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Representative Roach and then Representative Millette.
Thank you. Two things, looking at the data and then doing a brief research. I would like to say, and please don't think this is the coach saying that bullying is whatever, but it coincides with the push of bullying in schools, the increase of those. So if you look back around 2011, we really had a push on bullying, and it started with social media and things like this. And then in schools, you had signs up, if you see it, tell on, if you see bullying, we had this real push. We had workshops, we had everything about bullying. And I'm not saying that's wrong, please understand that. I'm just saying that's what might increase those numbers in as we see these cases go up. At the same token, though, these numbers are extremely low, in my opinion, and we're looking to make a law over a very small number of things, or a rule over some, whatever you want to call it. I also like to say one other thing, and I know the taking away of recess. In a conversation I just had with my daughter-in-law, who is a elementary school teacher, there are times they take away recess, and it is not done in a punishment type form. It's done in a learning environment. So in other words, that student isn't set in one of the seclusion rooms, or you're sitting with a bunch of other kids that are missing research. You're generally with the teacher or an adult who is having the conversation with you about why maybe this isn't, whatever the behavior wasn't the way to go. It's not just like this. It's not like suspension. It's not like these things. It's a very informative way to educate a kid at a time where they can. And I struggle with this whole piece right now, because It seems like a very small piece of the puzzle, and we're going to make another law with schools. And I'm done.
Representative Millet and then Representative Lyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's really an honor to serve with so many great retired educators. I started off serving with Representative Cornfield, who taught in one of, a phenomenal school district. And clearly many of you also have been and continue to do really great work. For me, if we all, it feels as if everyone who is teaching, has been teaching, acknowledges what's best practice, what works. And so my question is, why wouldn't we put in place a minimum expectation to afford all of our children the possibility for experiencing best practice? Because, I come from a district, we have our successes, we have our weaknesses, and I think that's true for everybody else on this committee. But what I try to do is when I look at bills, I try to take myself out of my own district. And Representative Cornfield and I always tussled over this, because coming from the Bangor School District, she would always say, we do this, we do that. And I keep whispering to her, yes, but this isn't about your district. This is about all districts. And so I guess that's where I am. It's like, if we know that these other approaches work, and you have been showing that in your own district, why would we not want to put that as our expectation with the amendments that the sponsor has provided? I feel as if she has made amendments and changes to afford the necessity for safe operation by including the language around dangerous behavior. She has recognized that the taking of recess can be used for positive intervention and instruction. So I feel as if the concerns that are being raised have been addressed in the amendment and would put all of our districts on equal footing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Lyman, and then Senator Whitson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Representative Millet, I would say that this work is already being done. And so it is, best practices are in place. And it concerns me that our conversation isn't directed toward that. If the information of, I got to find it, that K5 is 1,000th of a time that this is happening, I would say that's really good evidence to show that people are putting into place these practices and using these not as a disciplinary situation, but it's about safety, safety, safety. I feel very confident in saying that. Somebody asked that question. And when it is being used at this minimal amount of time, it really comes down to a safety situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Whitson. Senator Whitson, did you have
I'm
a question?
sorry. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of following up on Representative Lyman's thought, we have the data. We know how many were suspended. In the interest of it, it's a minute amount. But in the interest of safety, yeah, I think before we change anything, it might be wise to drill down into that data and get specific reasons. We could take a sampling of those suspensions, say for last year or the year before, and actually talk to administrators and find out what the why those youngsters were suspended from school. If it turns out it's because they were calling names, emotional safety, I suppose, but that certainly is a lot different than if they were gouging at somebody's eyes or throwing a chair at the teacher or tipping over a cafeteria table, something of that nature. I think, again, in the interest of safety, I think we should establish that prior to making a change.
Okay. Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we are at a point where there's just some fundamental disagreement about the role that we can play legislatively in terms of providing for equity and setting a minimum expectation for best practices. So I would just say when you're ready, I would be pleased to make a motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to share with the committee that I have had some doubts in my tummy along the way, but this amendment has removed my doubts, and I will be supporting this, particularly because it does include that safety carve out or caveat that as a teacher, I feel is very important and is, as I understand it, I may be incorrect, but is being left up to the discretion of the principal. And I feel that is a very important component, and I will be supporting the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I feel like Representative Dodge just took the words out of my mouth, and I just want to echo exactly what she said. I did have some concerns, and I do want to thank, not only the bill sponsor, but Mr. Shea and everyone who shared their experience as well as statistics, and that this amendment definitely sort of soothes a lot of, some of the fears, and I think still gets at the heart and the mission of what the bill sponsor presented us for the goal. So not seeing any other hands. I don't know, would it be possible to make a motion at this time, Mr. Chair?
I think Representative Millette already attempted to reserve that prerogative at this point. But we'll definitely give you the second. And before we get to motion, Representative Morales, I just had a couple of questions or thoughts, suggestions, whatever. And the second paragraph, where we talk about except where there's imminent danger of serious physical injury, should we put to the student and to others? Because right now it just says imminent danger of serious physical injury without specifying who that danger or injury might affect.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I kind of thought about it and trying to use as little words as possible, but still keep the intent. But I think absolutely, if that's what the committee desires.
Okay. And the other question I had, the suspension may not exceed 3 school days. There was also during the public hearing a discussion about a student returning to school when there was a safety plan that had been developed. And I'm open to this. I'm just more asking the question, should we put suspension may not exceed 3 school days or until a safety plan is in place? It kind of would be whichever came first.
Yeah, and maybe Bear would have some thoughts about that. We certainly don't want young people languishing in suspension for too long. And I just would point that when we're talking about 944 suspensions, those are events, not the number of days those students spent outside. So the 1.5% of the young people that were suspended, that times 10, that's a lot of days missed school. So, but I'd like Bear to respond to that.
Okay.
If possible.
Mr. Shea, did you have any thoughts about that?
I think making sure that exists. And I think another important piece is how are we establishing that threat? in that, I've worked with students who were suspended for 10 days because they brandished a pair of scissors. And when we use some of the best practices as far as threat assessment, we would go through and look at all of the different ways structurally to really assess whether that is a transient threat or whether that would be a major substantive threat where we really do need to consider, is it something that we can handle in-house and with the resources we have and putting in place some of those restorative processes and procedures that we know reduce these pieces, or that happened and so now that student is suspended. I think so having the initial assessment and a really clear process that allows us not to underreact and not to overreact in suspension. And that also builds in a team approach in building supports for that student so that they can return as quickly as possible with as little disturbance as possible. And that is a safe return for that student and for all of the other students and our educators that have experienced that disruption. So that complete process is something that should be able to be done in a short period of time. That being said, different schools are going to have different resources and different abilities. I think that time window, having a window of time is really important.
So you think if we had may not exceed 3 school days or the development of a safety plan, whichever is first?
I think that we have resources to be able to support schools in that. We have a statewide initiative right now through the Maine School Safety Center for every district to have to have training in the threat assessment model. And when other schools across the nation have used that threat assessment model, we've seen significant reductions in suspensions, expulsions, and violent behaviors over time. And so, the amount of time, it's really not a number of days. It's having those resources to put together the best team possible and to reduce that time when students are separated out from their schooling. And we talk about schools being the safest place. We want to make sure that students are in school.
So I'm trying to get you to say yes or no.
I know you are, Representative. I apologize.
You sound like a member of the legislature. So maybe I would just at this point, we'll leave it as is, or ask after we have a motion, we can maybe ask Mr. Senate to craft some language that may work there.
I can share that other states have used that 3-day marker, and that other states that I've worked with use between a 3 and 5-day marker, and that it is a very consistent piece across national legislation on this. Whether or not that's enough or not, again, comes down to resources. And so, but I can share that is that has been a common marker.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Seeing none, Representative Millette, I would accept a motion at this point that would be seconded by Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move to pass as amended as presented by the sponsor, and the additional language around a danger to the student or others.
Yep.
And I believe Mr. Shea's response that 3 days is utilized in other states makes me feel as if that's
Yep.
sufficient. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to include any
Yep.
additional language in it.
Okay. Where is the senator? Senator Daughtry.
In the absence of Senator Daughtry, I would be glad to second the motion.
So you'll be the proxy. Okay. Representative Dodge, you have seconded the motion. So moved and seconded ought to pass on LD 474 as amended, with the amendment being what was proposed by the sponsor of the bill, and adding the language about serious injury to the student and to others. And for the time being, we'll keep the 3 school days. Any other comments at this point? Seeing none, I will ask our clerk to call the roll.
Yes, Representative. Senator Rafferty,
Yes, ought to pass as amended.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry,
Just to clarify the motion, since I was pulled into another bill, it is ought to pass as amended, correct? Is the
That's
one
correct.
that I enthusiastically vote yes. And sorry about the confusion there.
Senator votes yes. Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson,
No.
Senator Woodson votes no. Representative Brennan,
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette,
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray,
Yes.
Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge,
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett,
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury,
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns,
No.
Representative Stearns votes no. Representatives, I don't see Representative Sampson. Representative Lyman,
No.
Representative Lyman votes no. And Representative Roach.
No.
Representative Roach votes no. All right, Representative. So it is 8 in favor of the motion, 4 opposed.
Okay. And I'll just ask Representative Stearns, the minority report is
Ought not to pass.
ought not to pass. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Senate, for your work on this. Mr. Shea, thank you very much for being here with us. And Representative Morales, thank you for working at this for, what, 3 years now, 2 years now? And we appreciate the amendment and your being flexible and allowing us to move forward with this.
Thank you
So
all very much.
we will now close the public hearing on, the work session on LD 474. And we will now go to work session on 552. And as everybody knows, we have already worked and voted this bill. And we have been asked by the sponsor, Representative Millette, to reconsider. And so in order for us to reconsider, somebody who is on the prevailing side of the original vote would have to move to reconsider. So can I have a motion to reconsider? Representative Crockett.
I'll make a motion to reconsider LD 552.
Having voted on the prevailing side, right?
I didn't check, but I think I was on the failing side.
You were.
I do have the voting sheet available if you'd like me to pull it up at any point.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Representative Dodge?
I would second that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Representative Dodge had her hand up, second the motion. So it's been moved and seconded, reconsideration of LD 552. All those in favor of the motion, we'll just do a raised hand. I see everybody. Nope. All those opposed? Opposed? Representative Lyman, Representative Roach, Representative Stearns?
My apology. I'm trying to look up the bill.
Okay.
552.
Are you opposed to reconsideration?
I don't know. I haven't found out what bill it is yet.
Okay.
What was the vote on it?
Sam, can we go back and just read the roll or call the roll on this? It's a little confusing how everybody's voting. Representative Stearns, it's the bill that Representative Millette had proposed about making changes to the IDEA process. So, but Mr. Baker, would you call the roll?
Yes, Representative. Senator Daughtry?
Yes.
Oh, Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Rafferty?
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Woodson?
Well,
Senator Woodson votes? Oh, sorry. I thought that was a no, not a well.
I need a clarification here. If I didn't vote for the bill originally, do I vote on this?
Yes, this is just a vote whether or not to reconsider. And you can vote no, that we shouldn't reconsider and just stay with our previous vote.
I don't know what it was about, but I'll vote yes.
All right, Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan.
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette.
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray.
Yes.
Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge.
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett.
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury.
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns.
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Lyman.
No.
Representative Lyman votes no. And Representative Roach.
No.
Representative Roach votes no. Okay, Representative. So it is 10 in favor of the motion and 2 opposed.
Okay, so the motion reconsider does prevail, and that basically puts us back to the original position that we're in as a committee before we took the vote on this. So what I'd like to do at this point is go to Ms. Risler and ask her just to summarize where we are and the amendment, and then obviously go to Representative Millette and have her walk us through the amendment.
Sure. The committee last voted this bill at the beginning of April. And at that time, let me pull up just very briefly. So this is a draft of the majority amendment, which provided that the school district must obtain informed written consent from the parent of a child with a disability prior to changing the nature or extent of the special education placement or special education related services. If the parent refuses the consent within 14 days, that the changes could not go into place. It also had a provision that if parents fail to respond within 14 days, the school administrative unit may implement the proposed changes as long as they documented their measures to reach the parents. It also included a statutory change that provided that if a parent requests the presence and participation in an IEP program to meeting of an individual who provides special education services to the child with a disability, that the school administrative unit may not unreasonably deny that individual's participation. So that was the committee amendment that was voted on at the time of the original motion.
Okay, and
that was an ought to pass as amended and an ought not to pass divided report.
Okay. Do you feel you're familiar enough with the amendment to go through that, or would you rather have Representative Millette go?
I'm happy to read and review it technically with the committee.
Yeah, just to follow process, if you walk us through the amendment, and then we'll let Representative Millette comment on that.
So this was the proposed amendment that I emailed to the committee on behalf of Representative Millette. Rather than putting any of these changes in statute, this would instead amend the bill into a resolve. The resolve would direct the Department of Education to amend the Maine Department of Education Regulations, Chapter 101, MUSER, to require parental consent in cases of material change in services to or a substantial change in the placement of a student with a disability. The rules must require that consent be obtained anytime the school district proposes a change in the special education services provided to a child that would result in a placement in a different school, a move to a more restrictive setting within a school, placement on an abbreviated school day, or the use of tutorial services to deliver instruction. The rules must clearly articulate methods of acquiring parental consent, including options to address a lack of response from parents or guardians. The rules must also provide that educational technicians and other educators with direct or regular contact with the student should not be unreasonably denied participation at individualized education program team meetings if requested. The rules adopted as pursuant to this section are major substantive rules and must be presented to the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs no later than January 2nd of 2022.
Great. Thank you. And are there any questions for Ms. Risler at this point? Seeing none. Representative Millette, would you like to go through the amendment and just explain to people why you thought it was important to reconsider the bill at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so it was a while ago, but you might remember that this is, I think, my third iteration of an amendment. I really have made an effort to be responsive to concerns that were raised by various stakeholders. So number one, this significantly narrows when the parental consent must be obtained. It's for material or substantial changes, like being moved to a different program or a different school of that nature. And then in my mind, that's the biggest change that this put forwards. The other changes simply reflect the fact that every time I tried to be responsive to concerns, it appeared that folks started saying, well, that's going to create more work, or that's going to be burdensome. So by putting it in rulemaking, it basically says, okay, stakeholders department, come up with the most efficient way of making sure that these various aspects can be implemented. I do need to add one slight change to this language because I think a word got dropped off, and that is around the staff not being unreasonably denied participation in the meeting if requested by the parent. Okay, so I want it is a very specific. So that's in a nutshell. It basically says, you know, here's the narrow parameter. DOE do rulemaking, bring everybody into the room, have those conversations, and then it would come back to the education committee for approval.
Great. Any questions for, thank you. And any questions for Representative Millett? Okay. And just to reiterate, you've already said this, but this would go into effect and the rulemaking would transpire probably sometime in the fall, and then we'd have that back before us January, February of next session. So any concerns that people have at this particular point, there'd be an opportunity to address those when it comes back as major substantive rules. I guess that's more of a comment than a question. Thank you. Any other questions? And Representative, I just had one. Just this version is a little bit easier to read than some of the other versions, but it's about 5 or 6 lines down, and it says a move to a more restrictive setting within a school placement. Could you just give me an example? Typically, the school it would be to a less restrictive environment within a school. What would be a more restrictive environment in the school?
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute. I have to look at the language again. Well, so if they're in the classroom and they're going to be moved to a one-on-one, what am I trying to say? Confined program, right? That's a more restrictive environment.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? So at this point, we would need a motion to pass, ought to pass on LD 552 as amended with the amendment that's presented to us today. Representative McCray.
Yes, I move that LD 552 be passed as amended.
I see Representative Crockett had his hand up, and I will take that as a second. Is that correct, Representative Crockett? Yes. Okay. So
I second.
So the motion on the table is ought to pass on LD 552 as amended by the amendment that was presented to us today that was just under consideration. Ms. Risler, are there any other amendments that we would consider at this point?
As to this bill, the only thing I would say is the adding that the can't deny the request from a parent was the only thing that was raised. That was not part of the written document.
Okay.
But
at,
don't know what else you mean.
okay. But there is a quote new title, but and it does make it clear about major substantive rules and and coming back to us. These
Yes,
rules
they are
yeah.
major substantive, yes.
And presented by January 2022. January 2nd. That was an interesting date to pick, Representative. But
It's
sure.
it's a standard date for report backs.
January 2nd?
It's the beginning of the second regular session
Because
typically.
January 1st is a holiday. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, ought to pass on LD by Representative McCray, seconded by Representative Crockett, ought to pass as amended on 552. And I will ask Mr. Baker to call the roll.
Okay, Senator Rafferty.
Yes, ought to pass as amended.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry. Not seeing her. Senator Woodsum.
No.
Senator Woodson votes no. Representative Brennan?
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette?
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray?
Yes.
Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge?
Yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett?
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury?
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns?
No.
Representative Stearns votes no. Representative Lyman?
No.
Representative Lyman votes no. And Representative Roach?
No.
Representative Roach votes no. Okay, Representative. So there's 7 in favor of the motion and 4 opposed.
Thank you. And Representative Stearns, the minority report is
Ought not to pass.
ought not to pass. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Representative Millette. Thank you for the latest iteration. Well, the final amendment. I mean, this does address concerns that people had, and it does allow us to go to rulemaking. So that's a good thing as well. So thank you very much. We are done for the day with our work sessions, and I will close the work session on 5:52. Tomorrow we start at 10 o'clock with public hearings on 4 bills related to vaccination. And as we talked about before, we will have a 2-minute clock on public testimony. And Mr. Baker, at this point, how many people do we have signed up?
Representative, I had 45 at last count.
Okay. So,
well, and Representative, did you get the email that I forwarded you from Casey and LIO?
I don't.
Or Senator Rafferty? I forwarded to both of you.
I'm checking now.
It's just that we do. Dan Chase was somebody that had signed up to testify for the public hearings this morning, and then had to go away for an appointment. And so it's at the discretion of the committee and the chairs if they would still like to hear his testimony for one of the bills that we heard this morning.
And what bill was that?
I believe it was LD 1186.
Didn't that,
it would be very unusual, but I'm willing. People don't have to stay if they don't want to, but we can. Well, we at least need a quorum to reopen the public hearing on 1186, allow him to testify, and that would be the end of the day.
Do we have language review?
We do have a language review, yes.
He's one person. He got kind of shuffled
No, language review. Yes.
All right. How many people would like to do language review? I can't believe anybody said they'd like to
We
do
do.
that. All right, Mr. Seneff, let's do language review. Mr. Baker, if you tell Mr. Chase, we'll be with them in 5-10 minutes at the most.
Okay, thank you, Representative.
And anybody that can't stay for that, that's fine. We'll just open the public hearing, let him testify, and we'll be done. So, Mr. Seneff, go ahead.
Sure, I'll try to be quick. I'm gonna share my screen here. So the first language review I have is for LD 761. This was an act to establish the Maine Community College Pell grant match program. So this is adding that upper limit of $500. I guess one thing I did want to clarify, I think this should be lesser if we do. That was actually my error. So let me just make a note. This should be lesser. I think it was a late night when I was writing this. So it should be the grant award should be the lesser of 500 or 100% of the amount of funds provided by the federal Pell Grant. I will fix that. Anybody have any questions about that one? Okay.
Sam,
So,
I would agree with you.
yeah. I'm glad I noticed that. So the next one is 1172. So this is a strike and replace. This is the act to delay state mandated teacher and principal evaluation. So the committee had wanted to clarify that the waiver applies only to the 2021 to 2022 school year, and that it excludes teachers in the second year of a probationary period. I'll just give you a second to look at that. Does that look okay to folks? And the last language review I have is for 1198. This is an act authorizing increase in the maximum annual fund balance for public school districts. That's that carryover for CUs. So if you'll recall, the amendment was looking to establish kind of two stages. So the first stage for fiscal years 21 to 22 through 24 to 25 would allow for 9%, whereas the 5% would be kind of the new floor. So I just wanted to, it was a little tricky to draft because of the way this subsection is written. So I just wanted to leave that up for just a minute so you folks can really make sure that that looks like what you want it to look like.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a quick question? I can't hear you, Michael, if you're speaking, sorry.
Go ahead.
My computer, my internet was a little unstable. Sam, can you tell me again, what were you saying about the percentage? So the bill was for 5%. What were you saying about the 9?
Yeah, sure. So for 4 years, there will be a carryover for a 9% will be allowed as opposed to 5. And the reason, if you recall, for that is that the American Recovery Act funds expire. So they're set to expire at the same time that the last of those years coincides with the expiration of those funds. So the thought was that districts might have more money coming from the state in those years and may need more flexibility to carry over some of those funds and expend them over a longer period of time. And then after that time, the carryover balance would be allowed at 5% instead of the currently allowed 3%. So it's higher, but not quite as high as allowed in the next several years.
Okay, thank you.
Does that look okay otherwise?
Representative Salisbury, Representative Dodge, did you have a question?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair. Mr. Seneff, does the same rule apply in both timeframes, that the money must be used to offset state and local share?
Oh, yes, yes. So I originally I had like 2 sections up here, but I have this. So if you'll see right here, the 9% must be used to reduce the state and local share, and then that language is up here for the kind of new floor. So yes,
Okay.
it does, in both
Great.
cases that does.
I see that now. Thank you.
Representative Salisbury and then Representative Millette.
I got distracted there for a minute. I'm concerned now. I'm concerned because the wording about the in the excess of 9%. So because so basically what we're saying, based on what you just said, if we have money left over, and that includes federal funds, okay, you're saying that those would have to be given back to the city or the state or the town for sorry, this just kind of blew my mind there for a minute. I'm sorry, Sam. For local share reduction of the I'm confused.
Can I clarify? I think the way this is written is really hard to read for like, I know I had to read it multiple times to really understand what it was saying. The wording's a little awkward. So basically what this means is that, so let's use the 9%. So the district can carry over 9% without having to worry about share being reduced. For if you go over, if the district goes over, share will be reduced unless those funds are spent in the 3-year period. So that's what that's saying there. And I think that's hard to understand when you read it the first time. You kind of get there when you read it the 6th or 7th time.
So if the funds are allocated by the federal government and they're to be spent by 2024 or whatever that the Easter 3 is to be spent by, then those wouldn't be turned over
They have the 3 years, yeah. If it's over the limit, they have 3 years, the district. Unless, and I'm not saying, there may be other stipulations in federal funding that the district needs to abide by. So this isn't taking into account any extra rules that any extra strings that the federal funding comes into. This is just money that comes that the state had, that the district has, that they are trying to figure out how they want to spend.
All right. Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so Representative Salisbury, I had my eyebrows went up as well on that language, but what saves it is what Mr. Seneff said, that being allowed to expend it over a 3-year time. That saves the issue around the federal funds, notwithstanding any sort of federal requirements and how those expenditures are made. But I think Mr. Seneff has struck the right language here to keep our districts whole with that federal funding.
Okay, thank you.
Those are okay. I just have some fiscal notes, which should be quick. No surprises this time. So this is the fiscal note. This is the act to stabilize student count in the funding formula. So this is the fiscal note this is the bill that would require the use of a 3-year average in the calculation of operating cost component of essential programs and services for units that experience a decrease of 10% or more in the attending school enrollment in the most recent year, if the 3-year average is greater than the 2-year average used in current law. So this indicates an increased total cost in public education. There's some estimations provided by OFPR here saying that if the provision had been in effect in fiscal year 21 to 22, the total cost would have increased by $1 million, with the state share being 51.83%.
I'm sorry, Mr. Senath, is this my bill?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
Good Lord, whatever.
The next one, are you, oh, okay, sorry.
Representative Stearns, did you have a question?
No, I would point out that I think that they used an example going backwards, and that would be assuming that the mill rate stayed the same. So moving forward, that will be in the wash, so to speak.
I'm gonna move to the next one here. So this, I think no surprise here, this is the 55% contribution. So I think these are numbers that this committee has seen before in the budget discussions. So they should look familiar. And then the last one is the final fiscal note for 636. So this is the local produce fund bill, which indicates there's language here that describes how those funds will pan out, but showing a diversion of unexpended balance from general funds unappropriated surplus, showing zero cost essentially.
Okay, Representative Dodge, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Collins' bill on the same topic will only act to enhance and improve, I would assume, not complicate or work in any way against this.
I wouldn't, I think I'm not sure, but
One would assume. Thank you.
and so that's the last one I've got today. Yep.
All right, thank you very much. And are there any other questions on the fiscal review? Or the fiscal notes? No. All right, again, we'll start at 10 o'clock tomorrow, and I at least need Senator Rafferty and a majority of the committee to stay with us for 2 or 3 seconds in order to reconvene a public hearing on 1186. Allow Mr. Cassidy to testify, and we'll be done. So we will now reopen the public hearing on LD 1186. And Sam, would you, is it Mr. Cassidy?
Mr. Chase, Representative.
Oh, Chase, okay. Hello, Mr. Chase.
Hi.
We can hear you, but not see you yet.
All right, just a minute.
All right, there you go.
You see me? Okay.
We have you.
Uh,
It's a little delayed, but we understand you wanted to testify on LD 1186 regarding U.S. Constitution and Constitution of Maine to be taught in high school seniors.
yes, look at the chat I just sent. That is a law passed in 1825. It has required the Constitution to be taught, not in senior year, but many years of school and memorized when they are of sufficient age. The bill is a good idea, but it's not needed. Only one thing is needed. I don't care who does it. Any one of you, look at my written testimony. It's a direct copy included, a PDF from the law library of exactly what's there in the chat window. All you got to do is print it out, take it to the revisor's office, and we have the Constitution being taught in the schools. That's it. The only thing we need in addition to that is it says you can print 10,000 copies. We need a little more today. Now, the Constitution is important because there are too many people who don't understand it and who abuse it. When you teach the kids the Constitution and they grow up, they don't become corrupt rat bastard judges and justices and prosecutors who violate the Constitution. They go, I know what the Constitution is. I learned that in 5th grade, and I will protect it because it's so important. I was told by Roger Sherman that there are many legislators who have never read Maine's Constitution because they don't want to feel bound by it. That was a few years ago when he was still a representative. We need to have the state operate in the Constitution. We need to have the Constitution taught. And as you can see, under the public law from 1825, it's been required for 196 years. And for 196 years, that law has been violated because somebody, through corruption or ineptitude, didn't get it into the statute books. If you believe the Constitution matters at all, take a copy of that public law from 1825 to the revisor's office and say, put this in the books, boys. It's already been passed. It's legitimate. I can't say much more except we need the Constitution. If you have any questions, please ask me. Trust me, I can talk a lot more.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chase, for your patience and for being here. And I'd ask if there are any questions from members of the committee. Seeing none. Thank you again for being here. And again, sorry that you had to wait so long. But we are in unusual times with Zoom, so we were able to kind of recreate the public hearing for you.
Yet one other thing, if I may. You are violating the right of petition by telling me if I do not sign up half an hour early that I cannot come to the committee. In real life, I could show up for a 1 o'clock meeting at 3:30 with 50 people still in line and sign up with a paper book and be heard. That needs to be the same thing online as in real life.
Well, thank you for that feedback. Appreciate it. So I will close the public hearing on 1186. And the committee work is done for the day, and we will see everybody tomorrow. And I'm sure we'll, it may not be our shortest day. But thanks everybody today for their work, and have a good evening.